Hello and welcome to Good Luck Soup Post-Film Conversation. This conversation is a special program between CIFF Streams and Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards as part of Cleveland Book Week, presented by the Cleveland Foundation. My name is Eric Siler, and I am a film, communication, and media arts professor for Cleveland State University, as well as your moderator for this conversation. I'm joined by two incredible individuals. We have Eva Hashiguchi. She is the grandmother and the subject in the film. And we also had the producer, director, editor, and also subject in the film, Matthew Hashiguchi as well. Hello, Matthew, and hello, Eva. How are you two today?
Just fine.
Hi, good.
Okay, great. Eva and Matthew, you're in two different places. So I guess you could say hello to each other. I guess you talk to each other and see each other all the time, maybe, virtually.
Yeah, not so much lately, but I was able to visit Cleveland a couple weeks ago and introduce Grandma to our new daughter. So I've seen her recently.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, congratulations on the birth of your daughter.
Thank you.
And the birth of your grandchild, of your great-grandchild, Eva. Okay, Eva, I'm going to, just for those of you who are watching, you watched an incredible film, a great story. And I'm going to talk to Eva first, and then we're going to say goodbye to her, and then I'll focus on Matthew. So Eva Hashiguchi, you look well. I know in the film we saw you celebrate a birthday, but you've had a few more birthdays since then. Can you tell everyone how old you are?
How old are you? How old are you? 95 years old.
Well, bless you. You look really well. You do. And the voice you hear in the background is her daughter, Bev Correctman. And she's being a little camera shy, but I might have her come on as well too. She was Aunt Bev in the film as well. So Eva, in the film, how you were so forthcoming, so open about your life. And when you came to Cleveland as a teenager, older teenager, and now many years later, just tell us a little bit how your life has changed from being in an internment camp up until now at age 95.
Well, I feel I face everything and I turn it to my advantage. So I'm luckily a happy person, and so whatever that was against me, I turned it into plus. So
that is such a wonderful attitude, and I know in the film you talked about that as well. You just take what life hands you, and you just deal with it. Where did you develop this positive attitude on life?
I don't know. I guess my dad told me, whatever you do, do it at the best of your ability. And so I learned, well, I was born a happy person, so I turn bad things into good or to my advantage.
Oh, wonderful. So that's important that you took that advice from your father. Now
Right.
you have a lot of wisdom, and and Matthew was able to capture a lot of that wisdom in the film. What's important for people to know? Why do you feel it was so important for people to learn about their past? Because in the film, some people indicated that, yeah, sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not, but, why do you think it's so important to connect with the past?
What's that?
Why is it so important to think of the past? What happened to your past? Why is that important?
Why is my past important?
Anybody's, yeah.
I don't know if my past is important.
Okay, exactly. But you're being so modest. I think it is. It's like a really important piece of history because at some point in the film it was indicated that You know, not everything can be found in the history book. One thing that you mentioned in film is your love of sports. You wanted to be a phys ed teacher, but you were not. And do you have a favorite sport at all?
I do everything. I used to be a real good left-handed basketball player. I was a softball pitcher, left-handed. As I grew older, I played tennis and was pretty good. I'm athletically inclined, so whatever I did well.
Very good. You left out bowling too, so you get a strike there in the film.
Yes, I did bowling. Anything I did athletically, I was pretty well, ran circles around women.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. Do you do anything now to athletically, even though it might be at a slower pace?
No, don't forget, I'm 95 years old. I don't do anything anymore.
Okay, well that's quite all right. You've had a wonderful life in that regards. In terms of the film, after the film was made, well, what did you think of the film after it was made? What did you think?
Frankly, I don't even remember what was on the film. I haven't looked at it lately either, so, but Matt did give me a copy of it, so I'll have to look at it again. I really don't remember what was on the film.
Right. Do you remember what people said to you after the film came out? Did they say, give you any feedback?
What?
Did other people say things to you after the film? Were they happy to see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess so. My Caucasian friends was surprised that I was put into camp. A lot of them did not know about camp life. I mean, that we were put into camp.
Interesting. That's interesting. One thing that was in the film was some customs, such as the shoji dancing. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Shojoji.
Shojoji, thank you. And also the holiday celebrations. Do you still keep up with any of the traditions that were displayed?
Yes, I do. I purposely make New Year's Day a special occasion. It keeps the family together, and so I do it habitually.
Oh, that's wonderful. And what is your favorite dish?
Good luck soup, I guess.
Of course. Of course.
It's a real plain, clear soup, and then I put the pounded rice, which is mochi, into it, and it becomes what we call ozoni, and that's the traditional New Year's dish.
Oh, interesting. Well, very good. I bet it's very tasty. You also, in terms of keeping active, you in the film it showed you doing some gardening. Do you still do anything with gardening at all?
No, I don't do. I have pots in the backyard and put tomato plants, but it's all in pots and on the deck in the back.
Well, great. I'm gonna let you go in a moment. I just have a couple more questions for you. I just getting back to the film. You were in the internment camp from age 16 to 19 for 3 years. What do you remember about that experience in that camp?
Well, I felt safe because I had my mother and father, sisters and brothers with me, but there are other people who had suffered because their fathers were taken away from them. So, but with me, I felt safe. I was 16, I think I was 16 when I went in and had my 17th birthday right away. And I felt safe and I excelled in sports. So I had fun.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad you were treated well. And you, when you came to Cleveland, and your children, actually all of them had mixed marriages. How did you feel about that? That they didn't.
Well, my brother, who is a year older, had married Caucasian. You know, I have a Caucasian sister-in-law, so I'm used to mixed marriages.
Oh, great. So you just accepted people,
Oh, yeah.
no matter.
Yes, each one of them are married to, one's Italian, one is Polish, and so I'm really happy. I mean, I think from now on, all the races will become one because of the intermarriages, which is good.
Exactly. You mentioned that in the film as well too. Um, in regards, the last question I have for you is, what's one thing you've lived a really blessed life? What's one thing that you want younger people to, as you're having great grandchildren now, what's one thing that you want them to know about your past? If you could pass on any advice and information to them, what would you want them to know?
I don't know. All I know is live a healthy, good life, law-abiding. I want them to just be good citizens.
Okay, well, great. Just good citizens, and just, I guess, maybe take your same attitude about, just be accepting of what life has and try to be a good and positive person.
Right.
Exactly. Well, wonderful. Well, it's been it's an honor to have spoken with you, and I appreciate you spending some time with us this morning. You look very well, and I'm going to now talk to Matthew, and I say thank you very much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Okay. Okay. Well, Matthew, how lucky are you to have a grandmother like that?
Very, very lucky, and I'm glad that she has a gravitation towards positivity, and that's something that has really been passed down to family members, and it's something that I cherish and try to preserve.
Well, yeah, you certainly did a great job in the film. And when I looked at this film, I looked at it as, wow, anyone could do this. Everyone has a story like this. People have, videos and pictures and so forth, but you told this story. It was just great. Well, what led you to telling this story?
I think it was motivated by my desire to come to terms with my heritage and to accept it, because throughout most of my life growing up in Cleveland, it was not a positive. It made me stick out within the community that I lived in University Heights, Cleveland Heights, Shaker Heights, and it was a source of ridicule from other people in the community, not only myself, but my entire family as well. So when I was growing up, this really was something that I cherished or embraced. It was something that I was embarrassed by. And as I grew older, I wanted to confront that shame and reconnect with it in a positive way. So it started out as an attempt to come to terms and to accept something that I was really, really embarrassed by throughout most of my early life.
Oh, very, very interesting approach. And I like the way the film came off. It didn't come off as if you were angry. It was, like you said, seems like you were just dealing with it.
Yeah, there wasn't anger, there was shame, embarrassment. I think anger came out in the past when I was younger in other ways, towards my parents or towards my siblings, and things I said to my father. I really remember yelling at my dad that I don't want to be Japanese. And it was for some unrelated reason. It was just I'm angry about something. So anger did come out when I was younger, but that went away as I grew older. And I think by the time I was in my mid and early 20s, I was able to kind of reflect on my upbringing and my family, and why I acted the way I acted, and how can I kind of overcome those things and not let it fester.
So why did you decide to make a documentary? Because I guess you could have written a book. Did you just happen to have a lot of footage? Did you have a background in this? Can you give us a little bit about your background, how it came in, how this actually developed into a documentary as opposed to another form?
My background is in visual storytelling. So I started out as a photojournalist, and that transitioned to video journalism. And then I went back to graduate school at Emerson College and studied documentary filmmaking. So in college, graduate school at Emerson was really where I realized the power of personal storytelling. And as a journalist in undergrad, and when you go and work for newspapers, it's never make it about yourself, never turn the camera on yourself or speak in the first person. But graduate school is where I was really exposed to stories and filmmaking approaches that used film as a personal expression and a personal art form, where it's not about what someone else, you're not telling a story about someone else, but you're telling a story about yourself through many other people or many other moments. And also, you know, when you think about the stories that you tell, especially in documentary and journalism, you have to tell stories that you have access to. And I have access to my family and my grandmother, and I was able to be present with a camera for those moments, versus I think I actually tried to start out telling stories about other people, and it just wasn't working, because I think I kept thinking about my own experience, and it just kind of clicked where, okay, well, I need to stop avoiding my perspective and my own experience and my own thoughts, and I need to kind of dig into that and uncover it. So I think I was very hesitant for a very long time to speak about it myself. I wanted to speak about it through other people. So it was a way to really just kind of look inward, and working with the cameras is very natural to me. It was just my background and something that was a natural approach.
Oh, well, wonderful. Wonderful. That's a very interesting approach. Some of the more specifics, I guess you have to get the buy-in from your family that you were going to do this. What did you say to them? Did you tell them that you're doing a documentary to help you deal with the past? Or did you say this is for, you know, to help advance your career? How did you get everyone to cooperate and so forth?
I don't really know how I approached it. I think I first asked my grandmother if I could start filming with her. And the first time I think I filmed with her, I just interviewed her. And then I kept just stopping over and filming with her, just doing things. And there's a number of moments where my grandmother's saying, okay, stop filming. because I don't think she realized that I wanted to just hang out with her and film, even as she was just doing random things. After, I don't know, a couple months of doing that, I think she became more comfortable and just didn't really mind being filmed. So it was a gradual process of not only getting my grandmother used to it, but also me getting used to being a filmmaker towards my family members. That was kind of a challenge. Other family members were not very enthusiastic about it, and that was kind of a challenge to have to be around them and stick a camera in their face when they just did not want to be filmed, or were not okay with some things that I was filming. So that was a challenge. And I will say that I think filming family members is probably the most difficult thing I've ever done, really. I think many people might think that, oh, you're filming your grandmother or your parents, your cousins or your siblings, that it's going to be easy. But no, it was probably the hardest experience that I've had as a filmmaker, because you're having to change who you are around family members, and you're having to ask questions that maybe you don't want the answer to, or that you'll be hurt to hear. So I can honestly say that I never want to point the camera at myself or my family members again, unless it's like a home movie or something like that. But
exactly. Well, this was a home movie. It was a really well done home movie in that sense. So you did turn the camera onto your family, and the documentary is done. What has been the response? What has the response been from your family and non-family members?
it's been very positive, and I think that my family, once they saw what I came up with, they were appreciative of it and understood what the purpose was. And I think especially when they've seen the outpouring of support towards my grandma, that's really the greatest benefit that has come as a result of this movie, is my grandmother being acknowledged by people and people wanting to know about her story. So that's really been the biggest prize, is just my grandmother's story and experience being acknowledged, and people realizing that she's just one of thousands who have a similar story like this. So that's really been the greatest joy out of this film. But to this day, I still hear from people randomly who saw the movie, and they may be my age, and they write to me and say, I relate to this so much because of the struggle that you experienced. And or I hear from people who knew my grandmother, or that may know my grandmother, and say, oh, I think I know her from California, or from a camp, or from time in Cleveland. So just hearing the ways in which people relate to the story has been the greatest thing to come out of it.
It's wonderful, and it is, I'm sure it is help people recognize their past, and I'm sure you can have inspired people as well too. It's hard to tell put a lot of information into a film, and as a filmmaker, you know that there's things that you wanted to say but couldn't say, didn't have the time. What's one thing that was probably left out of the film that you wish you could have had time to put in there?
I wish I had discussed some more things with my parents. I think that their understanding of what I went through, or my siblings went through, wasn't acknowledged very much by them, or maybe they didn't understand it. So I kind of wish I had and I think this is all coming out now because we're living in such a turbulent time with racial equality and the treatment of minorities and underrepresented people. So I think that what's happening now is making me look back on it a bit differently, but I don't know that my parents really understood, or even to this day really understand what my experience was like, or my siblings or my cousins' experience was like, and how that impacted us or me. So I wish I had pressed that a little bit more, and been a little bit more challenging towards them.
That's very interesting because I know you shared with us earlier about some of the experiences you had. Your parents and grandparents had similar experiences, but it's just like anything in life. How do you respond to it, react to it? So that's interesting. I can see how this film can help bring out about conversations like that. In terms of this film, there was footage from different eras. How long did it take to actually put this film together?
I started filming in early 2012, and I was done editing about early 2016. So roughly 4 years. And I had moved, I was in Boston, and then I moved to Cleveland and started filming. And then I moved back to Boston, and after, I don't know, two or 3 years in Cleveland, and then I would return to Cleveland every now and then and film some, and was editing the whole time through. So it was really a 4 year journey. And I got tired of hearing myself talk quite a bit, and I think you could only listen to yourself speak so many times. And by the end, it was a very exhausting experience to have to edit all of that down and then go to film festivals and then hear yourself speak again. And yeah, I got really exhausted from hearing myself talk.
Well, yeah, that's certainly understandable, but 4 years on a project, that can wear on anyone. You had some archival footage in there. How did you obtain that? Or was that something part of the family collection?
It was a lot of the home movies. We have old home movies from mid to late 1940s onward that I had converted into digital files. Are they 16? They're old 8mm. And I remember watching these things as a kid because we would have the projector, and we still have the projector. But a lot of the old stuff was from old 8mm reels that my father had, or my family members had. And then just throughout my life, my father and my Uncle Mark, they always had one of those big VCR cameras in hand. I mean, every family get together, they were filming each other film something else. So we had a lot of family media. And then also the Library of Congress has an enormous catalog of war content and propaganda films and photographs from the internment camps. Ansel Adams photographs. A lot of that stuff is royalty free and public domain. So I was able to really dig through a number of online museums, I guess you could call it, online archives, and pull that and use it in the film.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, you made that work very seamless in the film. So let's talk a little bit more specifically about some of the items in the film. You raised quite a few topics in there. And one topic, and you talked about this, was, you had things you had to deal with. I guess just if you could just touch on some of the challenges you had as a youth and how you dealt with it, and how do you think youth should deal with it today? Because we are in a time, like you said, racial awareness is heightened now. So how did you deal with things as a youth, and how do you think you should deal with it now?
I think growing up, it was never really explained to me why people treated me a certain way. And this is something that I wish I had had a conversation with about my parents, is when I would come home from school and tell my parents that someone was calling me a Jap or chink, and there was never a conversation with my parents about why people were doing that, and that maybe there's just never any context for me to understand why that was happening. and why others would perceive me that way. So I didn't really understand why people viewed me the way they did. I knew that I was different, and I knew that I was Japanese, but I'm also Italian American. So I think when I was a child, I just didn't have any sort of outlet to talk about it. And now that I have my first child, my daughter, who was born in March of 2020, I'm much more aware of how can I prepare her for those types of conversations, and what will people say to her, and how do I kind of respond to that. So this is already something that's really on my mind, and how do I prepare her for a life where people make fun of her, and they will, especially where we live in Savannah, Georgia. There's no Japanese American community here. There are very few Asians here. So it's going to happen to her. And she also looks quite Asian, even though she's a quarter Japanese. So the wheels are already turning, and how am I going to have these conversations with her?
Well, that's good. You're thinking early on. So I guess the key to youth now is to talk about it, to have conversations about race and not just ignore it.
I think so, and not just to have a conversation about one's own race, but about others, and expose them to the various ways in which people are different. So I want my daughter to understand that people come from all sorts of various backgrounds, and they don't all have the same skin tone or the same heritage or pray the same way. And I want her to really, really appreciate diversity and see it as a strength, not as a weakness or a negative.
Exactly, very good. What do you do now? What do you plan to do with your daughter to keep connected to the past, besides just watch a documentary over and over again?
I have no idea. I really don't know how you go about doing that. I know that her mother and I, my wife and I, are very interested in exposing her to books that address various types of people. And right now, who knows what she's really absorbing, but also things that she watches on TV. Mulan just came out, and there's another TV show with Aquafina called North from Queens. So even my daughter's name is Isabella. So even making sure that she sees people that look like her on screen is important, because she'll see that, and if they're portrayed in the right way, that there are people like her who are not bound by stereotypes, and that are complicated, and that are American, and that aren't immigrants just because you look Asian or a certain way. So we're kind of figuring it out as we go, but I think the conversation is going to be a key point to it, and talking about things. But we learn so much through what we see on television and what we read. So I think right now we're seeing a growth of diversity in media content, and that's really encouraging. And I will say that I was holding Isabella a couple days ago, and there was some trailer on in the back. I think it was Aquafina or Mulan, and it was just interesting for me to look at Isabella and then look at the screen and think, here's a positive representation on television of someone who has a similar ethnic background to my daughter, and that's not something that I had growing up, and I'm just looking forward to exposing my daughter to those stories.
Very well. That's good. That's good that you are engaging with her in that aspect. You mentioned books as well too. Do you have any favorite books or books that you think are really good to help people connect with their past or understand their past better?
I think as an Asian American, as a minority, I think most of the books that spoke to me growing up were African American writers and African American literature. And I think that for the most part, many minority groups in the United States gravitate towards the African American experience and the African American story. I don't know why. I think maybe because there's more of it when compared to Asian American or Hispanic, Latinx American content. But for me, reading Native Son, Richard Wright, Zora Neale Hurston, that was my entry into life as an outsider, or life when you're living inside of a system that does not work in your favor. So it wasn't until I was working on this film that I really started to expose myself to Asian American writers, Amy Tan, Joy Luck Club. There's an enormous amount of fantastic Asian American filmmakers and documentary filmmakers, especially Renee Tajima Pena, the Nakamuras out in West Coast, Robert Nakamura. So it really wasn't until I was in my mid-20s that I started looking at my own ethnic heritage and the stories that came out of it. But really, African American literature and storytelling really spoke to me the most.
Well, okay. Well, good. That's very good. There's lots of information available on that, and I'm glad that you mentioned some of the Asian authors as well too. The film, the title, Good Luck Soup, you could have named it anything. How did you come about with that particular name?
I don't know, and I actually sometimes wish I had named it something else. I mean, Good Luck Soup is something that we enjoy every year on January 1st. We get together, and my grandmother mentioned that for Japanese New Year's Day. But Good Luck Soup was something that we looked forward to every single year, and it's something that meant a lot, and I wanted to keep that. I wanted to make sure that the film was associated with that tradition that is being carried on. But sometimes I think, should I have named it something else that other people understood? Because it's not really about soup. It's more of a metaphor, I guess. But I'm wondering how many people saw this and thought, oh, I like cooking, so I'm going to see this movie. But it just kind of was a natural thing. I really didn't put a whole lot of thought into it. It just kind of was, I like Good Luck Soup, and we all like Good Luck Soup, so therefore I'll call it Good Luck Soup. But
you mentioned you wish you had named it something else, or what other name would you have named this film?
I didn't even think, I couldn't even come up with other names. And I think naming a film and coming up with a title is kind of so egocentric sometimes, because you're coming up with this like profound name that is supposed to mean something, and it's supposed to be grabbing. It's such a marketing ploy, really. And I couldn't even think of an alternative. I couldn't think of anything else to name it other than Good Luck Soup.
Okay. Interesting. So what's next for you? Good Luck Soup 2? It won't be that title, I guess.
No.
No. Well, what are you working on next? What can we expect to see from you?
I've been working on a documentary about rural healthcare in Georgia, and I've been following a doctor in rural Georgia who is the only doctor in the entire county that she's in, and I've been filming for about going on 2 years. I received an incredible award from Gucci Tribeca Doc Fund, and I'm trying to finish that up. The pandemic has kind of made that a lot more complicated, because now it's not quite as easy to go film with her or anybody. So it's been hard to wrap it up, but I'm just waiting for some things to happen in that film. But I'm almost to the end of that documentary.
Okay, well, very good, very good. Well, the commitment you put into Good Luck Soup, I'm sure the commitment you put into this film, expecting something wonderful again. We really, really appreciate your time here. And before I'll let you go, final question I have is advice. I always like to ask filmmakers the advice that they would like to pass on to people maybe as a filmmaker or maybe experiencing what you experienced in life. You've learned a lot through life. What advice would you want to pass on to younger people or just people who have viewed this film?
Look at yourself. Look at what you believe is important and what is important to you, whether you're a filmmaker or not. But I think that's something that's helped me as a filmmaker is look at yourself and identify the stories and the topics and the issues that you find value in, because then the work becomes more important. It's not just a job anymore. It's a calling. And I think if we all find purpose, the work that we do will be much more rewarding and much more valuable, because we'll think about the outcome not just as getting a job done, but as making the world better in some sort of way, or making someone's life better. So I tell all my students to look at themselves. Who are you? What did you experience growing up or right now? And how can you kind of tackle those subjects or topics in a way that contributes to society?
That's well taken. Self-evaluation is extremely helpful, I guess, in how you carry out your life. And we really thank you very much for joining us today and, and sharing yourself. It's not easy. This is very personal. As the saying goes, your life is on blast in a sense, not just on Twitter, but in a full-fledged documentary. And I applaud you for doing that.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I miss Cleveland. I'm looking forward to the Browns game this Sunday.
Oh, great. Well, yes, let's hope for another good year. Hopefully they'll take your advice and do some self-evaluation and take it out of the field.
I know. Yeah. And you know what, that's another thing that my daughter, something that's important that my daughter has is that she has pride in Cleveland. Even though she's not from Cleveland and was born in Savannah, I'm going to do my best to make sure that she roots for the Browns, the Tribe, the Cavs, and understands the history of Cleveland. So that city is incredibly important to me.
Oh, that's interesting that you, that's good. I'm glad you feel that way. Even though you've had some troubling times here, you still feel connected to. Why is that? Well, why do you think so?
I don't know. That's a very good question. I love Cleveland, and it's still my home, even though I don't live there. But I'm still best friends with the friends that I had at Jesu School in University Heights. I'm still best friends with the kids that I was friends with in first and second grade. And I found that's something that I found to be common in Cleveland, is that the relationships that you have there, you don't let go of them. So I'm going to make sure that I'm able to bring my daughter there as much as possible, because I want her to understand the diversity of Cleveland, even though that there are racial tensions and a lot of discrimination in Cleveland, as there is anywhere. It is still an incredibly diverse place that I don't think she would be exposed to in Georgia, in the South. There is one thing I've noticed about the South is that the conversations around race are white and black, and Cleveland to me was never the experiences and the perspective. The conversations that I had growing up were never really about white or black. It was more about you're Italian, you're Irish, you're Jewish, you're German, you're Polish, you're black. But it was much more specific to country of origin rather than just the color of your skin. And I want my daughter to be exposed to that varied and diverse history of the city.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that you're doing that. And for those of you who are watching us outside of Cleveland, Cleveland is a special place, and I'm glad you emphasized that, Matthew. It's you've encapsulated really well, and sounds like an idea for another documentary to talk about the uniqueness of heritage and so forth. So I'm glad you still feel that way, and want to expose your daughter as well too. Oh, great. Well, anyway, I just want to thank our guests today, to our viewers. Thank our guests, Eva Hashiguchi and Matthew Hashiguchi, for this very important conversation. For more information about CIFF Streams and the Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards, please visit clevelandfilms.org. Thank you.